the python hunting. I think in Florida now, anyone can hunt a python, and you get a prize too. Like you get money, and you get serious money. I don't know if it's like $1,000. Huge.
Like, where the is that place?
These species are under a unique threat from one particular invasive species that threatens the survival and the balance of the whole ecosystem, and that is the dreaded Burmese python. And you see right there.
Florida has come up with an adorable solution to a serious problem. These robot buddies are being deployed in the Everglades to help control the exploding population.
They discovered the initial corpse close to a drainage ditch. A local serpent, jaws ajar, struggling for breath that wouldn't arrive. Then they uncovered more and more. This wasn't an assault from a hunter. This was something different, something residing within them. We've at last obtained the video that links everything together, and it's horrific. It's no longer merely a tale of large serpents devouring small creatures. It's about a living explosive in biology that has just detonated. And believe it, the sole element that could rescue us is a legendary creature we believed was gone forever. Retrieved information, the vacant woodland. You recognize that noise of a vibrant forest during the evening, the tweeting, the shuffling, the ongoing buzz of existence. Well, if you venture into the southern Everglades this night, you won't perceive it. You'll detect breeze through the sawrass, the smack of liquid against your vessel's side, and absolutely nothing more. It's a quietness so dense it seems like force on your eardrums. And that quietness is the initial hint that something has turned dreadfully, appallingly airy. Over the past several years, investigators have been extracting memory cards from wildlife cameras positioned far within the grassy river. These devices are intended to monitor variety of life. You know, tally the raccoons, the opossums, the bobcats. But when they inserted these cards into their computers, although they observed something that chilled their veins, or more precisely, they observed nothing whatsoever. The recordings were blank, hour upon hour of swaying foliage and shades. No shining gazes, no searching beasts, simply an emptiness. Information disclosed, or more accurately, leaked from irritated on-site scientists, depicts an environment that has been practically cleansed. We're discussing a breakdown that appears numerically improbable. In the central areas of infestation, raccoon numbers haven't merely declined, they've plummeted by 99.3%, opossums reduced by 98.9%, bobcats 87% vanished. Essentially, the whole mammalian group in the southern Everglades has been sucked away. For quite a while, we assumed we understood the cause. We pointed fingers at the Burmese python, the enormous squeezers that overran the marsh in the 90s. And sure, a 20-foot serpent demands plenty of energy. But here's the snag. The calculations never fully matched. Even with 300,000 serpents, the pace of the downfall was too rapid. It was too complete. Fresh recordings from the upper boundary of the overrun area are at last revealing to us the explanation. It wasn't solely about hunting. It was about terror. The surviving creatures didn't simply get devoured. They altered their actions completely. They ceased traveling. They halted reproducing. They retreated beneath the surface. The videos display a terrain of dread where the simple aroma of a python prompts local species to immobilize, famish, or escape. But the barrenness of the marsh was merely the introductory performance. The cameras ultimately captured something that wasn't meant to exist there. And when you witness what's occurring to the local serpents, the ones the pythons aren't consuming, you comprehend that the quietness was merely an alert. And the true terror wasn't the large serpent you could observe. It was the unseen beast it carried along. Initial victim, the Tempest of 92. To grasp the terror we're examining today, we must reverse the recording to one tumultuous evening in August 1992. Hurricane Andrew. If you were in South Florida at that time, you recall the sound. It stays among the most ruinous hurricanes in US records. With gusts reaching 157 miles per hour and a 17-foot tidal wave, Andrew's wreckage was utterly catastrophic to Miami, particularly South Miami, where the storm struck shore. It resembled a cargo train howling through your home. Winds struck 165 miles per hour. It flattened Homestead. It converted mobile home areas into metal shreds. But as people were crouched in tubs, beseeching for dawn, something additional was transpiring on the fringe of the marshes, a facility for breeding reptiles. Essentially a storage building packed with foreign pets meant for home enclosures suffered a straight impact. The top was torn away like the cover of a fish tin. Enclosures were demolished, panes broken, and into the furious gale, hundreds of infant Burmese pythons wriggled off. They didn't merely endure the gale, they navigated it. They flowed into the waterways, floated to the wooded isles, and discovered a paradise for serpents. But it wasn't solely the hurricane. That's the easy narrative everyone recites. The reality is more sinister. During the 90s, the trade in unusual pets was flourishing. Folks were purchasing these serpents for $10 at outdoor markets. They were adorable, controllable, and impressive until they weren't. A Burmese python develops quickly. In a year, it's no longer an endearing strand. It's a strong hunter eyeing your feline as a treat. Overburdened keepers did the compassionate act. They traveled to the remote paths, opened a sack, and released the serpent into the vegetation. Be liberated, they imagined. What they were truly doing was igniting the trigger on a weapon of biological mass destruction. The Everglades is temperate, moist, and abundant with nourishment. It's practically the same as the python's original territory in Southeast Asia, but with one huge distinction. Nothing here recognized what a python represented. A Florida hare knows to flee from a fox. It knows to scan the heavens for birds of prey. It possesses no inherited instructions to inform it that the moss-covered trunk by the water is really a lurking hunter able to attack at 20 miles per hour. The pythons feasted on the spread. Then they began multiplying. A female can deposit 100 eggs per occasion. Perform the arithmetic. One serpent turns into a 100. Those 100 become 10,000. For 2 decades, we attempted to combat them with raw power. We organized python contests. We compensated men from the bog to pursue them. Yes, we even experimented with using male snakes as trackers, marking a male and trailing him to the females. But for each serpent we removed, 1,000 more emerged. And as we were preoccupied by the obvious overrun, the pythons were unleashing their hidden armament. It wasn't their dimensions. It wasn't their hunger. It was a passenger concealed in their respiratory organs, struggling for breath in the bog. This is where the narrative shifts from an adventure film into sheer horror of biology. On-site scientists began observing something strange a few years back. They would locate a local pygmy rattlesnake, a resilient, poisonous, small, enduring one reclining dead on the path. No puncture wounds, no fractured skeleton, just deceased. When they transported these serpents to the laboratory and dissected them, the space became hushed. The respiratory organs of these local serpents were crammed, actually filled with parasitic nematodes, but we're discussing scores of them squirming in a clump of gore and flesh. They recognize the entity as Rhyotella orientalis, the serpent lung parasite. This invader is indigenous to Asia. It resides within the Burmese pythons, but here's the distorted aspect. The pythons are resistant to it. They developed alongside. The python transports the parasite, disseminates the ova, but doesn't become ill. It's a carrier without symptoms. The native Florida serpents, they possess no resistance. When this parasite enters a pygmy rattlesnake or a garter snake, it doesn't merely reside there, it consumes. It ingests the lung material, triggers enormous swelling, and materially obstructs the serpent's capacity to inhale. The videos of afflicted serpents are difficult to view. You observe these creatures parting their jaws, extending their throats, frantically attempting to obtain oxygen, but their passages are obstructed with invaders. In the concluding phases, and the parasites can even emerge from the serpent's jaws, and the spread mechanism is a terror of precision. It operates this way. The python deposits excrement in the marsh. The excrement is laden with parasite ova. A roach or a beetle ingests the excrement. A toad ingests the roach, and then a local serpent ingests the toad. Explosion. Contaminated. The young form burrows through the serpent's gut barrier, travels to the lungs, and matures into a parasite that feeds on blood. What most individuals don't comprehend is how swiftly this is advancing. The pythons are largely confined in South Florida due to the chill, but the parasite, it has abandoned the vessel. It no longer requires the python. It's circulating through the local environment independently. It has been detected as distant as Jacksonville. It's progressing quicker than the serpents ever might. We're examining a situation where the pythons could vanish tomorrow, and the epidemic would persist. And it's a blaze in biology that cannot be extinguished. But the natural world is peculiar. Amid this catastrophe, researchers observed one local serpent that wasn't succumbing the cotton mouth. For some cause, these poisonous aquatic adders appear to manage the parasite superior to the rest. Are they the selected endures or merely the final to succumb? As the parasites were annihilating the minor serpents, the region resolved it was time to introduce the formidable weapons. If the antagonists possess a colossal serpent, perhaps the protagonists require one as well, reinstating the Apalachicola. So here's the situation. When your environment is crumbling, occasionally you must perform something that appears utterly mad. The choice was executed: unleash additional serpents. But not any serpent. They desired to restore the monarch, the eastern indigo snake. We're discussing serpents, and dozens of serpents were liberated into the wilderness in North Florida to consume other foreign serpents. If you've never witnessed an indigo, envision a serpent crafted from steel and dark lubricant. They are the lengthiest local serpent in North America, attaining almost 9 feet. They are enormous, potent, and completely bold, and they possess a very particular menu. They consume other serpents. They consume rattlesnakes. They consume copperheads. They consume cotton mouths, and they are resistant to the toxin of American adders. They don't squeeze their victims. The fresh Florida is a combat zone, and the beings battling for it are developing directly in front of our vision. So, who triumphs in the final conflict for the marsh? The unseen parasite, the colossal intruder, or the local coalition? It's a flip of the coin with the environment on the line. If you believe the Bobcat Uprising has an opportunity, press that like icon. Subscribe to continue monitoring the enigma, because the marsh hasn't disclosed all its mysteries yet. But then, toward the end of last year, a wildlife camera captured an image that had biologists celebrating in the workplace. It was an image of an infant indigo snake, a newborn. This wasn't a liberated serpent. This was born in the wild. The sovereigns were multiplying. They were setting up a foothold. Now, everyone is posing the identical inquiry. What occurs when the indigo encounters the python? The indigo is large, but a python is a behemoth. An indigo cannot devour a 15-foot python, but it could devour a newborn. It could devour a young one. An indigo snake is a dynamic pursuer, a sentry vehicle that never rests. If they can search the woodland ground and eliminate the infant pythons before they enlarge, they might just be the barrier that preserves North Florida. It's a risk, an immense gamble in biology. But just as we assumed we were placing all our stakes on the indigo, the disclosed videos from Big Cypress presented us another surprise. The local opposition isn't solely originating from the laboratories. It's originating from the residents' development in actual time. Far within the Big Cypress National Preserve, there was a python lair. A huge female was protecting it. Investigators had their attention on it, aspiring to seize her, but a wildlife camera preceded them. The videos retrieved from the card displays a bobcat entering the scene. Now, typically a bobcat evades a python. It's a size category discrepancy, but this feline, a male weighing perhaps 25 pounds, didn't retreat. He pursued the lair. He comprehended the gigantic female was lethargic, maybe molting, maybe just preoccupied, and he commenced operations. The camera recorded the bobcat striking at the serpent, evading attacks with responses that made the python appear as if it was proceeding in delayed movement. But the genuine astonishment wasn't the conflict, it was what transpired afterward. The bobcat didn't merely ruin the eggs, it began consuming them. And then, in a turn that no one anticipated, videos from other regions started displaying bobcats defeating and storing python remains. Storing is when a feline conceals its feast with foliage and soil to preserve it for afterward. This is advanced conduct. It signifies the bobcats aren't merely responding protectively, they are identifying the pythons as a nourishment origin. They are acquiring knowledge. This is enormous, and it's what researchers term biotic opposition. It requires time, sometimes decades, for local hunters to determine how to defeat a fresh intruder, but it's occurring. The bobcats are aiming at the layers. The alligators are weighing the smaller serpents in the liquid. We even have accounts of Florida panthers, the scarcest feline in North America, defeating pythons. The marsh is arousing. The videos of that bobcat positioned over a conquered python with the time indicators illuminating in the edge is the most optimistic element we've observed in 20 years. It demonstrates that the Everglades isn't merely a casualty, it's a warrior. But let's not advance prematurely. A few courageous bobcats cannot consume 300,000 serpents. The parasites are still disseminating. The indigos are still limited in quantity. The conflict is distant from concluded. We're positioned at an intersection. To the south, a zone dead in biology where the quietness is overwhelming. To the north, a frantic boundary of protection maintained by reinstated serpents and adjusting hunters. The videos inform us one element. Certainly nature discovers a path, but usually nature's path is fierce, chaotic, and entirely unforeseeable. The consequences aren't merely something we're observing, it's something we're experiencing. The Florida you recognized has vanished.